17 Mile Road westbound after M53, the right lane closed, scheduled through early November. I'm Kevin Sanderson, WJR Traffic and Weather first.
Mostly clear skies tonight. Temperatures on their way to the mid-30s, and that's where we'll be when polls open for Election Day on Tuesday morning. High temperatures will make it to the mid-50s, and it will be with plenty of sunshine, even lighter winds than we're seeing today, which was a huge improvement from the weekend. Wednesday, we get even warmer, 63 on the high side with mostly sunny skies, and we will stay in the 60s through the start of the next week. In fact, we've got a dry forecast that extends all the way through the weekend. Next rain not till Monday. I'm Local 4 meteorologist Ben Bailey.
It's time for Lions Review. Presented by MGM Grand Detroit, the king of sportsbooks. Now here's the voice of the Detroit Lions, Dan Miller.
Hey, what's up? Good evening, everybody, and welcome. This is Lions Review for Monday, November 2nd. Lions coming off Halloween weekend. They did not come dressed up as the team that we had seen the previous 2 weeks when they took on the Indianapolis Colts yesterday. They'd done some good things in winning 2 games in a row. Now, did they have some good fortune? No question about it against Atlanta. We're going to talk about those things coming up tonight and go back over this Indianapolis game, which was a lopsided loss by the Lions. And one that, let's face it, it just starts some of the questions over again. And those questions are, can you beat good teams? Now, they beat a team with a winning record when they beat Arizona earlier this year, but when they played Green Bay, it was one-sided. When they played New Orleans, it was one-sided. And when they played the Colts, and I think a lot of us weren't sure how good the Colts were going into this game, it ended up being one-sided. So it kind of starts the merry-go-round again where you're wondering, what do you make of this team? And there were things in this game that you just can't do against good teams. And we'll discuss that with the head coach coming up. We'll discuss that with Matthew Stafford coming up. But if you look back at this game and just break down going in, what do you have to do to win? Well, number one, you have to win the turnover battle. Well, if you look at the third quarter, when the Lions were still in this game and it's 20-14, all of a sudden 2 turnovers, 1 fumble by Matthew Stafford, and then the pick 6. Within moments, it goes from 20-14 to 35-14. You can't turn the ball over against good teams in this league and survive. Just, it's not a way to make a living. And then penalties. If you look at the Danny Shelton penalty, and I know there was some questions about that, and I will just say when I watched it real time, I thought he went well past the whistle. My senses said, that's not good. Now, the flag didn't come out immediately, which was a little bit confusing because the official said that he was so wrapped up in the dust-up that was going on between the players in there that he got swept up in that. It didn't throw the flag and then decided to throw the flag later. Okay, give him that, whatever. But point being, it was a huge call. You're talking about the difference between being off the field, forcing a punt, and then giving them new life on the drive, and all of a sudden they drive down and they score and they take the lead. So that becomes a problem when you look at that. You just can't give teams those kind of breaks in what amounts to an additional possession. And at that point, it was just one of those things that can change a game. When you look 41-21, you say, okay, how much did it change it? Well, you know what? If you take the lead or you jump on top, then it forces them to play differently. They didn't go down the field much. They played a very patient style of football. A lot of stuff around the line of scrimmage. Get up by 7, get up by 10. You know, maybe you make them change a little bit in the second quarter, third quarter. But they didn't do that. But I digress. Penalties. Shelton penalty. Kept the drive alive. Justin Coleman penalty was a 41-yard penalty. Took them down into goal-to-go situation. That's 2 drives, both affected by penalties that ended up being touchdown. Not done. The Tony McRae penalty, running into the return man who would call it a fair catch. That's 15 yards. It took them from, I don't have it right in front of me, somewhere around the 30-something yard line to plus territory. And again, ended up being a touchdown drive. So that's 3 penalties, 3 drives that allowed them to score 21 points. And then you look at the 2 turnovers in the third quarter, took it from a close game to a 3-touchdown game. You can't make those kind of mistakes. You can't hand those kind of points and opportunities to the opposition. And that's what the Lions did in this game. And it became very, very difficult to overcome as we welcome in Mike O'Hara, who joins us from DetroitLions.com. And Michael, I was just making the point. In this league, you can't give opportunities to good teams, which is what the Lions did with 3 penalties on scoring drives, the penalty on Tony McRae, the penalty on Danny Shelton, the penalty on Justin Coleman, and then the 2 turnovers. I mean, don't worry about line of scrimmage at this point. Don't worry about how much you stop them. Talk about what you gave them in those instances, and then you can get to everything else.
Yeah, you might be able to give away one like in the first quarter, like the Lions got the interception that set up a touchdown against the Saints. But when you get into the third and fourth quarter, when you're driving and you run out of time, you can't do that. And you just mentioned the sack fumble recovery. That was the third quarter. The Lions are kind of driving right there in the game. And next thing you know, the Saints have 2 touchdowns in 8 seconds of clock time, and the game is over. You cannot recover then. Some of it's timing, some of it's circumstance, some of it's both. And that was a case where it was both.
Yeah, and it's 20-14 when that merry-go-round begins. And then you look up and it's 35-14. So you went from 20-14. If Stafford takes the sack, and he's going to talk about this coming up, it's probably 20-17 at that point because Prater comes out and you would hope knocks it through. Matt has not been automatic this year, missed one that didn't look like one of his normal efforts this past week, just didn't come off his foot very well. But let's just assume for a moment he makes that. It's a big difference between, 27-14 and 20-17, and you've got a little bit of momentum. And it just, look, and these aren't excuses. This is not being good enough. This is not playing well enough. This is not saying this is why they lost. This is saying these are the things they did to lose.
No, I agree with that, Dan. And the one thing about it, here we are almost at midseason. I mean, close enough to call it midseason. And I still can't give you a definition of what the Detroit Lions are as a football team. Now I can say they're not good enough and all that, but are they a run-stopping team? Are they a passing team? Are they a tough team? Are they a dirty team? Are they whatever you want to go? I don't know how you would classify them. Do they have a real identity? I mean, as a way they play football? I don't think so. I mean, you get 180 yards rushing 3 weeks ago. Then you get, 29 yesterday? And 10 of those are on a scramble. I just don't know where they fit as a football team.
Yeah, we'll talk to Matt Patricia and Matthew Stafford about this coming up. But to your point, one of the things that hurt him in this game was just very, very, very unproductive runs early in downs. And I looked it up. They missed on their first 4 third downs. I mean, they had no time of possession in the first half. They had a short field, scored on it. That's good. And great job by the special teams to block a punt. But the rest of the drives were basically they were not holding the ball for very long. 0 for 4 on third downs. And those third downs averaged 10.5 yards per third down. Against a good defense, you can't make a living like that.
Yeah, I think it was the first 29 minutes, I think, of the first half. The Lions had 8 first down plays. They ran on 6 of them for a net of no gain. Now, I think that might conclude from that the Colts kind of saw what was coming and handled it.
And you would hope that would lead to some self-scouting and because when you have a propensity to do the same thing, and Lomas and I talked about it during the broadcast. There were numerous times where you could see the front 7 for Indianapolis just crashing towards the line at the snap. They knew what was coming, and they were ready to stop it. And that became problematic in this game. There was just no symbol. What did it end up being? 11 carries for 7 yards or 7 carries for, I think it was 11 carries for 7 yards between the running backs on the Lions, which just, you had Swift was 6 for 1 and Peterson was 5 for 7. So that's 11 carries, 8 yards. That's not good.
No,
that's not good. And that's because, Mike, go back. What has Trey Flowers and the rest of the defensive players been telling us? We're not doing a good job to run, and they're getting into advantageous third down situations. We'll flip that. And that's what happened to the Lions yesterday. They did get stopped, and they were in third down situations that were advantage defense.
And I don't think that's the first time it happened. But just when do you think like they're turning the corner on something like that, and then there's another corner comes up, and it's just a reversal of form. Excuse me. I really liked the Lions in that game yesterday too. I thought they were going to play good football. I thought a couple of wins. They weren't the greatest opponents, but they were wins. And here you are, a chance to get above 500. We keep talking about them getting over the hump. I think they have to get to the hump, and I think that was a chance to get to the hump, and just came up empty.
Well, it was a chance to really define yourself. It was a chance to put 3 wins together. It was a chance to beat a team that was 4-2, a chance to beat a team that had a top 5 defense, and they didn't take advantage. Now the schedule is still, favorable in terms of the records of the teams that you're playing. But if they don't play better than they played yesterday, they won't win. They have to play better than they did yesterday. You can't do those things that end up just beating you. You just can't.
I agree with that. And plus now they've got some injuries too. I'm sure Galladay and talked about Trey Flowers.
That's not good.
Doesn't get easier.
That's not good. Yeah, Trey Flowers on the injured reserve, which means he's gone for at least 3 weeks. And then Kenny Galladay. Patricia said day to day or week to week. And that little addendum in there of week to week tells you it's probably not good where this hip injury is, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. According to a lot of reports, they worked out Mohamed Sanu. We'll see what goes on there, but it's really going to put the onus on some other guys to step up at receiver. And you've lost your most dynamic guy for Matthew Stafford to throw to in Kenny Galladay, and that is problematic for an offense that, as we've talked about, hasn't been as productive as we thought it might be. And that's one of the reasons, again, that in some of these games when the defense has been giving up a lot of points, the offense hasn't been keeping its end of the bargain either. So let's take a break. This chat with Mike O'Hara brought to you by Comerica Bank. Experience full-service banking at Comerica Bank. Learn more at Comerica.com. When we come back, you will hear from the head coach. Had a chance to talk with Matt Patricia today. Went back over this game. Talked a little about new acquisition Everson Griffin. All that and more coming up on the other side right here on Lions Review.
more Lions Review. Presented by MGM Grand Detroit, the king of sportsbooks. Here's Dan Miller.
Clock moving. Rivers takes him straight to the line. There's the snap. Rivers back. Rivers throws deep down the right side. It is caught into the end zone. Touchdown, Nyheim Hines. Second of the day for Hines. Second time that he has gone through with a pretty darn good gymnastics routine down in the end zone. I don't even know what you call those, but it's like a flip, a spin, and another flip, and why not?
I'm going to give him a 10 on that. If I'm one of the judges, he gets a 10. But Dan, again, with Phillip Rivers, you can't show him the blitz. We blitzed Jelani Tabide, but we showed it to him. All Phillip Rivers did was buy a little time, step back, and just floated the ball to Hines. Nice play by a veteran quarterback that's seen it all.
Yeah, he has, and he saw another good day yesterday. Phillip Rivers did the job and picked apart that Lion defense. All right, let's talk to Lions head coach Matt Patricia, as I had a chance to do earlier today. Interview with the head coach brought to you by MGM Grand Detroit, the king of sportsbooks. Just talked with him first about today's developments, losing Trey Flowers to short-term IR, and now having to moving forward without a very, very important part of their defense.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously Trey Flowers is a huge part of what we do every single week. He's he's a great player, comes to work every single day and makes everyone around him better. But look, we got a lot of great players on this team and on this defense, and those guys will all go out and do their job, and we'll just keep going. Just obviously Trey will get out there as soon as he can.
Well, the timing is certainly right to add an Everson Griffin. You didn't want to go into him too much last week, but he will be with you this week as he goes back to Minnesota to face his former team. Just thoughts on what you're adding in a player that I'm sure you know very well from years of watching him in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know obviously an explosive player, a guy that plays really strong at the point of attack. He can get after the quarterback, and a guy brings a lot of energy and just a lot of juice to the defense. It'd be great for him to go back to Minnesota, have that opportunity, and we'll be looking forward to get him out there as much as we can.
Hey, Coach, yesterday's game, just a lot of coaching points, I'm sure, coming out of that, because it seemed like credit to the Colts, but there were also a lot of self-inflicted wounds in this game.
Yeah, there certainly were. I mean, obviously, like we said, the Colts, they did a great job in the game, but we know there's plays out there that, we can do a better job of, and certainly situations where, turnovers and penalties really put us in a bad spot. And, we just got to do a better job with that all the way across the board. And again, I just think, we got to coach better and we got to play better, and really just wasn't a very good game for us.
How big, as we start just with the offense here for a moment, did you think the early downs were, in particular first half? You weren't able to sustain much. If you look at those first 4 third downs you had, I'm not great at math, but I think you were averaging third down at about 10.5 yards. That's a tough position to be in against a defense like that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we knew how dynamic they were up front. Those guys did a great job. Buckner and Houston and Leonard certainly, he did a phenomenal job of just being all over the place and around the ball. And, we just knew that they were going to put us in some of those situations. I thought they did a great job mixing in the pressures. It really kind of got us in some of those and put us in those longer down and distance situations. So they're never where you want to be. And we need to do a better job of staying on track on first and second down to help us out on third down.
You mentioned the pressures there. What did you see from the offensive line? And did you feel like a lot of what happened in that game yesterday was correctable, that it's stuff you just got to get back and grind on?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's a lot of learning today, a lot of things that we can, see on tape, and certainly a lot of stuff that we saw before. I know coming out of their bye week, they had a couple new wrinkles, but really, some things that we saw before. We just got to do a better job out there in the field, in the game, of handling them and making sure that, from a coaching standpoint, we get the right adjustments and just get them fixed. So, that's what we're getting done here today.
You mentioned turnovers a moment ago. Just expound upon that for a moment. It is something that you talk about every single week, and I'm sure daily with your guys. You hung in that game. I mean, this was a game at 20-14. You had 2 possessions at that point where you could have taken the lead. The last one ends up in a turnover, and very quickly it went from a 6-point game to a 21-point game. And that's the kind of quick turnaround you can have in this league if you're not secure with the ball, which to this point this season, you guys have been very good at.
Yeah, absolutely. In the NFL, when you give an opponent extra possessions and certainly, give them opportunities to turn those into points, games can get away from you pretty quick. But, we know we just got to get back to, doing what we do well and making sure that we're taking care of the football. And, on the flip side of that, we got to get the ball too. We got to do a better job on defense here of taking advantage of the opportunities we got in order to get the ball off our opponent.
I think a lot of people were confused after what happened on the Shelton play. Did you get a satisfactory explanation of what happened there, where it seemed like the flag came well after the play itself?
Well, I mean, obviously, in that situation, we just got to do a great job of playing through the whistle, hearing the whistle, and then just getting away from everything else that goes on. It was really an unfortunate situation where, we had them stopped, and the penalty hurt us. It hurt us in a big way, and they were able to get points off of that. And, those are things we just can't do, So from that standpoint, we just we gotta hear the whistle, we gotta stop, and we gotta make sure that we're not in any sort of situation that could cause us to get those types of penalties.
Hey, these are not pleasant Mondays in the NFL when you're coming off a loss, but the nice thing is you got one coming right back at you this week against the Vikings. Look, a lot of the faces, their record isn't where they want it to be, but a lot of the guys that you realize make the Vikings a tough team are still on that roster. So just give me a look ahead to this game and what you're expecting as you get ready to make this trip.
Yeah, well, no doubt. I mean, obviously they're coming off a big win here this past weekend and played a great team up in Green Bay. So, we know that Kirk Cousins can certainly get the ball out to his playmakers. We know how, dynamic their run game is. Cook is just, he's one of the best runners in the league, and they do a phenomenal job with that stretch run game. I think, just from that standpoint, they've really perfected that, and they're, using that at a high level. Thielen, we know how dangerous he is, and certainly Justin Jefferson, the new addition that they added, this past year out of LSU. He's a phenomenal deep threat, big player, guy for him downfield, and, guys that they continue to feed the ball to. So they've got a lot of playmakers all the way across the board on offense, and, we certainly know that they can score points when they need to, but certainly they're doing a great job of just controlling the game with their run game, giving the ball to Cook and letting them go from there. And then obviously on defense, we know Harrison Smith and Kendricks really, they lead the charge, and they're going to be consistent, and Coach Zim's going to dial it up, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more of the pressures that were giving us a problem here last week. So we got our work cut out for us this week. We got to get back to it and just get better.
All right, there he is, Lions head coach Matt Patricia, talking about yesterday's game against the Colts and looking ahead to the game against the Vikings that is coming up this week, which you'll hear right here on Lions Radio. And Mike, I think when I look at that game coming up this weekend, Minnesota's got to be feeling good about things. Things haven't gone well for them. And the first thing you're going to have to do is stop Dalvin Cook, because they are going to keep sending him into that line until the Lions figure out or show that they can stop him.
Well, just look at it, Dan. 30 carries for 163 yards. That's 5.5 per carry, 3 touchdowns, and then a couple of catches for 60 more yards, I think.
And Mike froze on us there.
There was another touchdown.
Now you're back.
But then 2 catches for 60-some yards more, another touchdown. Mm-hmm. They're featured back as a guy to feature. He's rolling, and I think Kirk Cousins in a limited role, he was 11 for 14 for 160 yards or so and a touchdown. I mean, they had it rolling against a good team.
That's an early 70s quarterback stat line. That's a Bob Greasy stat line from a Dolphin win. Quick question, Mike. When you freeze like that, do you age?
Glasses are off, Dan. This is war.
I was just checking. I didn't know you froze there for a second, and I just wondered to myself, do you actually age at that point, or is it just you're frozen in time and you just go from point A to point B and then you resume your life? We'll have to figure that out. It's a bigger, broader question we'll have to take more time to think about. We're going to take a break, come right back. Much more coming up on this edition of Lions Review. When we come back, quarterback Matthew Stafford, we had a chance to chat with him. That's coming up next. Stick with us.
Fox News, I'm Rich Dennison. President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden making their closing arguments to voters ahead of tomorrow's election. The president in Pennsylvania warning supporters about a Democratic win.
They're going to have socialized medicine. That's what they're going to have. Confiscate your guns, Second Amendment in big trouble. And indoctrinate your children with anti-American lies.
Biden also hitting the battleground state of Pennsylvania.
We choose hope over fear. We choose unity over division. We choose science over fiction. And we choose truth over lies.
More than 98 million Americans have already cast ballots. Austrian officials say a terror attack in Vienna has left several dead with more than a dozen injured. Gunfire was reported from at least 6 sites in the city, and at least 1 suspect remains on the loose. America is listening to Fox News.
M14 westbound at Sheldon Road, an accident cleared from the right shoulder. I-75 southbound between Adams and 8 Mile down to 2 lanes scheduled through early November. 9 Mile Road between Grand River Avenue and Hawthorne Street closed through Friday for restoration of the road surface after water main repairs. 8 Mile Road westbound between Groesbeck Highway and Mound Road, the left 2 lanes are closed through late November. I'm Kevin Sanderson, WJR Traffic and Weather First.
Mostly clear skies tonight. Temperatures on their way to the mid-30s, and that's where we'll be when polls open for Election Day on Tuesday morning. High temperatures will make it to the mid-50s, and it will be with plenty of sunshine, even lighter winds than we're seeing today, which is a huge improvement from the weekend. Wednesday, we get even warmer, 63 on the high side with mostly sunny skies, and we will stay in the 60s through the start of the next week. In fact, we've got a dry forecast that extends all the way through the weekend. Next rain not till Monday. I'm Local 4 meteorologist Ben Bailey.
to more Lions Review. Presented by MGM Grand Detroit, the king of sportsbooks. Here's Dan Miller.
Rivers throws right side, caught by Doyle into the end zone for a touchdown. What a big turnaround that was on the Danny Shelton penalty that took the Colts out of a situation where they would have been punting, gave them new life. They take it down and score, and they've got the lead for the first time today with 5:32 to go in the first half.
And Dan, I know Coach Patricia emphasized they have to stop the run. But the play action pass right now for Indianapolis Colts is killing the Lions defense because it's just freezing those guys too much, getting those guys underneath or behind them, the complete routes.
All right, that's Big Low yesterday in the broadcast, and that was Phillip Rivers having some fun against the Lions. And, here's the thing, Mike. Here's where that game is so disappointing. Aside from the fact they lost, they didn't play well, they just did a lot of things you can't do to win, is they had a chance, albeit maybe just a subtle shift, to change the conversation, to get back to the point where they were, legitimately in the playoff race, that may include one more team, make it to 8 here, they're saying. But you lose the game in lopsided fashion. You lose the game making the kind of mistakes you just can't make, and you go back to the old conversation. And the old conversation's about this team not being good enough to beat good teams, and how's it, affect the future of Patricia and Quinn. And you know what? You can't change the conversation until you change the product, until you change how you're performing. And that's what everybody out there wants this team to win. But until they do, the same old questions are going to be asked. And the only people that can change that are in Allen Park. That's it. It's just them.
I had a doctor's appointment this morning around 9:30, and I've only been to this doctor 3 times, so it's not like we know each other well or anything. And our first 20 minutes was talking about the Lions.
Yeah.
And
that's born out of that's born out of love. People love this team. Sure. I get the same thing wherever I go. It doesn't matter if it's a grocery store or the restaurant or a gas station or whatever. And people want to talk about it. And a lot of times they're just airing grievances. And I get it. And it certainly comes with my gig. And I understand that it's because they may be angry at this team, but they want this team to win. They want something to wrap their arms around and to sink their teeth into. And, there are times where it just becomes more pronounced. You get a head fake, which is a win over Jacksonville and Atlanta. And look, there are people out there that will say, so what? Don't care. But there are also people that say, you know what? Great. They won. That's terrific. Now let's go out and win again. And then you lay an egg like you did yesterday. And it just, as I said, it goes back to the old conversation. And it's something that you and I have talked about before. There is no curse. There is no. You're not predestined to lose. You are only really either a victim or a benefactor of your decisions, good, bad, indifferent, and roster decisions on the field, decisions on the sideline by the coaches, all those things. They have the same opportunity every other team in the league has. They're just not taking advantage of it and haven't taken advantage of it recent enough to build any equity with fans out there.
I think the National Football League, the commissioner's office and all that, I think they play favorites to a certain degree, like in scheduling, and affairs and things like that. But in terms of the game itself, it's even. There's no favoritism. There's no curses, like you said. But as from a fan standpoint in Detroit, it's almost like every series of downs is a referendum on how the Lions are doing now. They've got a 10-0 lead, but why'd they throw them? Whatever. Yeah. And there's never any relief from your past. It's a down by down, quarter by quarter, game by game, week by week, season by season thing. And it really gets to be, it's not tiring, but it's really a weight to carry. But you've got to change it. I mean, a lot of teams, even the ones at the top, are subject to that, but at a different level. Are we going to make it to the Super Bowl? Yeah. With Detroit, are we going to make it to the playoffs? Well, are we going to get to 500? It's a lower bar.
And as you said, Mike, you have to change that. The team has to change
Absolutely.
that. And for some teams, it's not series to series, down to down, or even game to game. And the reason is they've built equity. Now, there is tremendous excitement, and people want to know how a team's going to do. And it's a huge league, and there will always be discussion and volleying back and forth of opinions. But teams build equity up with their fans to the point where if they have a couple of off weeks or something like that, they may be angry and there may be chatter about it, but it's not viewed the same way as it is for a team that hasn't won a lot of games or won playoff games or had the kind of success that others have. Look, the Steelers can have a bad game or two and people in Pittsburgh will go crazy, but they also have a lot to lean back on in terms of success for that franchise over the years.
Yeah, I was just going to bring up the Ravens and the Ravens.
Same thing.
Yesterday, they're not talking about the demise of the franchise because the Ravens lost. It's what do they do in the rematch and how do they get to the playoffs and how do they win the AFC North discussion right now. Look, are they unhappy about losing yesterday? Absolutely. But they don't think the franchise is tumbling around them either.
No, because again, there's not that feeling of, oh, here we go again. There's when you're winning like that, there's a feeling of, hey, let's get them next week. We're going to get right back to playing the kind of football that we're capable of playing. Whereas with the Lions, the conversation is more like, can they play that brand of football? And look, this conversation isn't coming from a bad place. I think you and I have been around this franchise long enough that,
Absolutely.
When they win, it's a good thing. And that's what I've never made any bones about the fact I won't speak for you. Look, I'm the voice of the team. I'm emotionally invested. I want this team to win. My best days are when fans are happy. And right now, I'm not having my best days.
No, absolutely. Dan, a perfect example of that for me was, I think, was it 4 or 5 years ago when Stafford had like the 7 or 8 fourth quarter comebacks?
2016, yeah.
So that's 16. And I think it was like the 7th one or so in my Tuesday night golf league, they'd won it. And one of the guys goes, hey, they won it. That's just the kind they always lose.
Yeah.
They just won 7 in a row. But, they're just, it's embedded in them.
Yeah, but got to change the conversation, man. Got to change the conversation. But I have those same conversations.
Absolutely.
There's they can change it, and we shall see. All right, let's get to our chat with Matthew Stafford today, brought to you by Henry Ford Health System, the official healthcare provider of the Detroit Lions. Had a chance to talk with Matthew today, and the first thing we discussed was just a game in which they did too many things you can't do in this league against a good team and expect to win.
Yeah, no question. Obviously, I turned the ball over twice, which is tough. Took points off the board and obviously gave them points as well on one of them. So, huge plays in the game. We didn't run the ball as well as we can on offense. Really just didn't play well enough in any of the phases to win the game.
Tough on early downs in particular in this game. If you look at what happened in the first half when you weren't able to really sustain anything, took advantage of a short field, but outside of that, your first 4 third downs, you had 3rd and 10.5 on average. That's putting yourself in a tough position.
Yeah, we weren't good enough, early downs. There's no question about it. We gave ourselves some extremely difficult 3rd downs throughout the game. Converted some of those on some big plays late, but it's going to be tough sledding if you're giving yourself 3rd and 9, 10, 11, 12 all game against a defense like that.
Second half, you come out, you score quickly, you pull within 6. Did you think that you found something at halftime? Did you make some adjustments where you felt a little bit better?
Yeah, I think, we just came out in the second half, had really good tempo and executed. That's what it was. Hat on a hat in the run game. Guys were making plays on the outside. We were catching and running, doing all that kind of stuff. We just, weren't able to sustain it for long enough against that team.
It felt like you get within 6. You had 2 possessions where you had a chance to take the lead. And then the turnovers kind of came in, and it went from a 6-point game to a 21-point game. It felt like that was a critical juncture where you had a couple of opportunities and you weren't able to take advantage of them.
Yeah, no question. We got down there in, close enough in field goal range when I fumbled. And if I could have just held on to that ball, take a sack, I'm sure Prater comes out and hits a field goal, and, there's 3 points there, and we feel better about the drive. So, that was a huge one. And then obviously throwing a pick 6 in that situation was tough and really put us behind the 8 ball. So can't do that.
Well, you look at it, you talked about the turnovers, you put them on yourself last night. But the fact is, you guys have been really good with the football. But this just reinforces when you're in there against a good team, it's really tough to overcome those. And penalties as well. Penalties were an issue in this game, too. Those are 2 things where you're just giving them opportunities.
Yeah, they don't need any help. It's a good football team. And really all the teams in the NFL are good football teams. And that's why when you look at the turnover ratio and penalty differential, are two of the most telling stats in football. So we just got to do a better job of those, and we'll be where we want to be.
You see how quickly things flip in this league. This conversation was a lot more enjoyable last week coming off a win. Now you get ready for Minnesota. They get your attention very quickly. You got a chance to get it back against a team in your division this coming Sunday.
Yeah, division rival at their place. Obviously a team coming off a big win this weekend, playing good football, run the ball great, playing good defense. So always a challenge going there and playing, and I'm sure this week will be no different.
Final thought, Matthew. You look at that defense. Everson Griffin is now with you guys. Daniil Hunter is out. You just played against Xavier Rhodes. It's a whole lot of familiar faces that aren't there anymore. But has this defense changed much? What kind of challenge do they present?
No, I mean, they're still a really well-coached defense. They've got really good players in the back end. Both their safeties are big-time players. So, we'll have our work cut out for us. Always a tough scheme going up, against Coach Zimmer and his scheme. So it'll be a big challenge for us.
There it is, Matthew Stafford talking about game yesterday against the Colts, looking ahead to the Vikings as well. We will take a break, come right back, wrap this edition of Lions Review up. Right after this, we will see you back in just a moment and look ahead to those Vikings.
to more Lions Review. Presented by MGM Grand Detroit, the king of sportsbooks. Here's Dan Miller.
Sanchez, the punt. They blocked it. They blocked it. Down at the 36-yard line. It is blocked and picked up by the Lions. Lions have it back at the Colts 33-yard line. Miles Killebrew broke through to block that one. What a big-time play by the Lions special teams unit.
And that's Miles Killebrew's second big play. He had the tackle on the kickoff return. Now he comes up with a big, big punt block.
Jamie Collins, the recovery, and the Lions are in business now.
Well, it was fun for a minute. Lions with a block punt yesterday that led to a short field, which led to a touchdown, which led to a 7-0 lead. And Michael, that sounded suspiciously like the call of the game, sponsored by Ring Central, official partner of the Detroit Lions. Ring Central, message, video, phone together.
Yeah, you don't really often get it on special teams, but I just thought that they must have seen something there.
Yeah.
And it really was a good example, Dan, I think, of complementary football. The defense holds, the special teams gets the block, the offense in 2 plays gets a touchdown, and it's a 7-0 lead. And, what am I thinking? Okay, my pick is right. They're on their way. They're going to win. Hello, 4-3. We're all geniuses. Goodbye.
File your article. Go home early. You're good here. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you. I've got my story. I'm sticking to it. Yeah, Miles Killebrew. Congratulations to Miles and his wife. They had a child, which is why Miles did not play last week. But he started with a tackle on special teams on the kickoff and then blocked a punt. So it was a good start for him, and that's what he does, make plays on special teams. But in the end, there were not enough of those. And now you set your sights on the Vikings, and either the Vikings or the Lions will walk out of this thing feeling like they've got it headed in the right direction. The Vikings never in the world expected to be where they are right now record-wise, but you are what your record says you are. So these two teams, both of whom are disappointed right now, are going to line it up. We'll see what they've got. There won't be a massive crowd in Minneapolis like we've seen in the past. There is no Everson Griffin. He plays for the Lions now. There's no Danielle Hunter, but this is still a tough team that's going to present a very big challenge.
No, absolutely. And I picked the Vikings to win the division. And what do I know, right? But
apparently
nothing. But the Lions are 3-0 on the road, so maybe it's set up for them to win and do the unpredictable again and win a game on the road. I guess.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means anymore. What does road and home mean? I mean, they've lost at home to New Orleans and lost at home to Chicago and lost at home to yesterday the Colts. So I don't know. I mean, it's. How tough is it to play on the road versus how tough is it to play at home? I don't know. There's got to be a comfort factor to be in your stadium, I would assume. But, you don't have a jillion fans coming after you. It's like we talked about last week. They didn't have to score on that game-winning drive against Atlanta with a crowd going crazy. It was quiet in there, which is nice. So we'll see. I mean, look, they won the first 2 times they played in Minnesota. So that place hasn't been a complete had a voodoo hex on them or anything like that. Just got to go out and play better football than the Vikings.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Look, the Lions have lost their last 7 games at home, so there's something going on there that they're just not taking advantage. I don't care if it's nobody in the stands or 60,000 in the stands. You've got to win games at home, but you got to win games everywhere.
I can tell you what went on with some of that was there was no Matthew Stafford. That was the problem for some of it.
Yeah, that was part of it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Last year, not having him playing in those games. So onward and upward, my friend. We shall see what happens when they take on Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings coming up this week in Minneapolis. You'll, of course, hear that one right here. Pregame show gets underway at 10 a.m., and we'll have the play-by-play for you at 1 o'clock. Michael, great stuff. Appreciate it, my friend. That's it for this edition of Lions Review.